You know, I don't consider myself an angry reviewer. I can't replicate the freakouts of the angry video game nerd, nostalgia critic, the spoony one, or the cinema snob. But there's something I want to discuss. Something that ruined the Christmas of 2006 for millions of children all over the world. Eragon. I don't know how to talk about this. Let's talk about its source material then. In 2002, Christopher Paolini publishes a story he wrote when he was 15, Eragon. Eragon was the tale of a boy and his dragon, and it became a hit among young readers. I didn't get in on it until I was in 6th grade, and I managed to get through about half of the book before I put it down because I was bored of it or something like that. However, that same year, the book was getting a movie adaptation, and I begged my family to take me out to see it. I was one of those kids who loved dragons after all, and even back then, we walked out of the theater with 2 questions. Why? Oh god, why? The Pursuit of Happiness, Children of Men, Rocky Balboa, and Pan freaking Labyrinth were out that month, and I chose Eragon. The movie was a boring mess with a distinct lack of an epic feel. It was massively toned down in its themes and its violence in order to make a family-friendly PG film. I want to know whose fault it was really that this movie was bad. Many people on the internet claim it was the people involved with the movie, that the film was just a complete sellout of something respectable, but I want to know for sure. So to find out for sure, I'm going to try to read the book right now on my Kindle, which I bought from Amazon.com. The website's Amazon.com. What I'm about to say is basically shooting myself in the foot because I know a lot of fans of the inheritance cycle, but I told myself I would be honest in these videos. So, here goes. Oh my god, this book is so boring, I now remember why I couldn't finish it. This guy gives the most uninteresting descriptions about the most basic settings and images. In good pieces of literature, the setting and narrator become characters as well. The author can suck you in because the story feels like it's being told by an actual person. Like in Unfortunate Events, where the narrator had personal connections to the characters and his own quirks. When something in the plot of Eragon does happen, it rips off Star Wars. The setting rips off Tolkien. Heck, even the name of the protagonist is from Tolkien. How could you be so unoriginal? When I was 12, I wrote a short fantasy story about an animagus demigod recruiting an army of ninjas to help him fight the legions of a Balrog at the summit of a mountain. It was terrible, stupid, and had just about the worst dialogue you'd ever seen. But at least I came up with a more original idea than the genius who finished high school at 15, and I didn't write about random crap. All Paolini added was the pure awesome idea of being a dragon rider. But that's not enough to carry a book. I'm gonna give the man the benefit of the doubt and assume he improves with each book, but Eragon, the source material and series starter, sucks. But we're not here to talk about a terrible book. We're here to talk about a terrible movie. Now, I'm going to be honest with this movie. I'll point out anything I like if I come across it. Let me first shoot down a few reasons some people might like it. Number 1, it has dragons in it. I realize the addition of something cool like giant reptiles can make a movie more enjoyable for a little. Hell, look at this scene from The Last Airbender.
Has declared war.
That doesn't make that awful movie good even though something cool happened. If you want a better movie about dragon riding, we have How to Train Your Dragon now. Go watch that instead. Number 2, it's innocent fun. Well, first of all, I don't think plagiarism is very innocent. But about the fun factor of this movie, well, honestly, I think it's kind of sluggish, but even if you enjoy it, wouldn't you rather be watching the original Star Wars trilogy or Lord of the Rings? When I watch Eragon, it just makes me wish I was watching a movie this story is ripping off. Number 3, the movie is well shot and well acted. Well, sure. But the movie isn't well paced, nor its story well told. Not all movies are bad because of bad acting. Hannibal was a fantastically acted and shot movie that was also devastated by its weak source material. Number 4, it has hot actor / hot actress in it, or I grew up with it. Believe it or not, these are actual retorts I get when I say something nostalgic is bad, even when I attack something impossible to defend like Fantastic Four. With this logic, everything that came out around the time these people were children was good because of the year of release or because they have a certain attractive performer. Let's take Alone in the Dark, the Uwe Boll movie with 1% critic approval on Rotten Tomatoes and considered one of the greatest failures of filmmaking ever. But it came out in 2005 and Tara Reid / Christian Slater is so hot, right? I use rational arguments here, okay? Alright, let's get started on this movie. The movie opens with Brahm, played by Jeremy Irons, giving a narration about how this place, Auga, Middle-earth, used to be ruled by men who rode dragons. We learn that Galbatorix, played by John Malkovich, a dragon rider, was seduced by the dark side and killed all the other dragon riders, and we get a first-person shot of dragon riding. By the way, coolest shot in the movie, which they unfortunately bust out at the very beginning so they have nothing to follow it up with. Galbatorix became king and pushes the rebels called the Varden into the mountains, along with the other filthy races such as elves and dwarves. The plot starts with Princess Elfchick here stealing a stone from King Malkovich.
I suffer without my stone. Do not prolong my suffering.
So that's your idea of the opening spoken lines in the movie? Well, Malkovich chews scenery, at least that part won't be boring. What's that? John Malkovich is in this movie for about 5 minutes of screen time and is in the main billing only to boost ticket sales? The character doesn't even move locations, he probably filmed all his scenes in one day. The guy appears in the film less than Michael Caine in The Dark Knight Rises. Well, never mind then. Most of our villain work will be done by Robert Carlyle with red hair and a cape as the Shade, Durza. So, Jill Valentine here runs from Durza, gets caught, and uses magic to teleport the stone away to the farm boy Eragon while he's in the middle of hunting. Darth Carlyle is kinda pissed, so he force pushes and then force chokes the princess.
Where did you send it?
Poor Durza. How will he tell the king? You failed.
We get back to Eragon and his village while a draft of soldiers is occurring. I do like how we're shown the jingoism of Galbatorix's kingdom and how military service is glorified to an extreme. That's an interesting look into this world that I'd always hoped they'd explore in Star Wars. Eragon tries to sell his weird dragon egg. Oh my bad, we're not supposed to know it's a dragon egg yet. We also see Brom getting bullied by the king's men. We get a bunch of boring scenes establishing Eragon has a good relationship with Uncle Owen and his cousin, who leaves to join the military. Here's Eragon brooding. Oh come on! Didn't the director think Paolini took enough from Star Wars? Don't make it worse! So, cute cartoon dragon hatches. Yay! Brom and Malkovich sense it somehow. Meanwhile, Durzuman births evil monsters with his magic to kill Eragon. So over what I presume is the course of 1 or 2 days, the dragon Saphira suddenly transforms into a tank-sized death machine when she enters the clouds and catches fire. Okay, sure. She chooses Eragon to be her rider. Oh, and now she's voiced by Rachel Weisz.
Brom was right, Eragon.
The CGI on her looks okay. It's fitting in this fantasy world, at least. Eragon goes to hang out with Brom and ask about dragon riders, but almost immediately afterwards, the Uruk-hai or whatever kill Uncle Owen. Eragon blames the dragon for some reason. Dude, you should be sucking up to her so you can ride on her back. What are you doing? So, Brom kinda kidnaps Eragon, and they get on the plot railroad. Eragon calls his dragon with the telepathic bond the two now share. Eragon tells Saphira that Brom knows about dragons. To prove this, Brom shows his intellect on dragons.
This is Brom. He knows about dragons.
Muscular. Graceful proportions. Talons. Nicely curved. Legs a bit thin.
Only my voice is gentle, old man.
Spikes sharp. All in all, a fine young dragon.
Those were just basic observations. I could have pointed those out. This classifies him as an expert? I can be an expert too. Pick me, Saphira. So, Obi-Brom Kenobi trains Eragon on how to use a lightsaber. I mean sword. He also hints to be able to use the Force. I mean the Source. Uri. Magic. So they enter the next town in a swamp, which has a nice set design. Eragon talks to a fortune teller, who doesn't say anything useful, and then action sequence with orc-looking things. And Eragon knows magic now too. That's another thing that's really dumb in this world. The requirement for performing magic is just to know the elfish words. No talent is needed to be a sorcerer. The guy gets a vision of Princess Jill Valentine, which we'll get back to in a second, but first...
Those were Urgles, weren't they?
Yes.
Did I kill them?
Yes.
Wow, the kid smiles at the thought of killing. Screw moral struggles. The best type of fantasy character just does things without exploration and motivation. Eragon's character feels more two-dimensional than a piece of Bible paper. We keep being told he's the hero of this story, but we don't really have any reason to believe in him. Nothing about him is different from a fantasy hero like Frodo. He doesn't have a reason to be the chosen one, at least that's revealed in the first book. The story feels like it's written to try to do what Tolkien did, but worse. Hell, Brom would have been a much more interesting protagonist. He's an older guy who was crushed by Galbatorix's regime, losing much of the fire to fight back against the man who brutally took over the world decades ago. If he got a new dragon, we could see the fire come back, as he finally would get a second chance to set things right. But no, we need a teenage protagonist because teenagers have a hard time empathizing. So Brom gives Saphira a saddle. Yeah, I didn't see Brom carrying that around at any point, and Eragon rides the dragon in a beautiful flying scene. They land, fight the worm Uruk-hais, and then there's a twist that surprises absolutely no one.
I thought we agreed not to lie to one another. Dragon Rider.
Well shoot, you mean the guy who tells stories about dragon riders, knows about dragon riders, recalls a better time when dragon riders were in charge, and has a saddle for a dragon, was a dragon rider? Then Brom tells us he killed some dude we never get to see named Morzan to avenge his dragon. Hey look, character development. The twist is the character being developed isn't the hero. So, Durza goes to torture Princess Arya while Eragon sees visions of her in his dreams. Eragon decides he wants to save the princess because... well, you would too. Eragon has Saphira wait outside because...
our power is greatest when we're together.
We can't truly be together until I become as strong as you.
What do you mean? She basically needs your commands to follow, unless you mean literally, in which case this isn't Mortal Kombat Annihilation. You're not turning into a 10-ton flying reptile anytime soon. So Eragon sneaks in and gets in his first direct confrontation with the main villain Durza, and Carlisle is enjoying himself so much, it's amazing.
Ah, a young magician. How quaint. Do you already feel it draining your strength? Listen. They say as a dragon rider draws his last breath, he can hear the dying screams of his dragon.
So Braum gets impaled by a spear and Durza doesn't finish our heroes off for some reason. He gets shot in the head, but it looks like he can reform any second. Eragon gets away with the help of some dude played by that guy from Tron Legacy. Obi Braum Kenobi dies, and Saphira spits glass on him? Okay, how? Later, Arya gets poisoned and we meet the guy from before named Murtok come to help Eragon because the king killed his family or something. So they go to the Varden hideout. We go back to King Malkovich telling Durza to...
wipe them out. All of them.
The Varden are about to test Eragon but decide to do the smart thing and let the guy with the giant pet dragon help them out in their cause. We also find that Han Solo here is the son of Morzan. So the scene where Murtok used Eragon's sword, which used to be Braum's sword, which used to be Morzan's sword, was pretty clever. Then Durzu Man, who looks like he's had too much cherry sherbet, makes his "We kill rebels" speech.
These cowards will hide no more! A new power is rising! Its victory is at hand! Tonight, we destroy the resistance! This night, the land will be stained with the blood of Rohan! March to Helm's Deep! Leave none alive! Annihilate!
Also for you ladies, if Palpatine-looking Robert Carlyle's not working out for you, here's Ed Spieler shirtless.
Excuse me. I should have knocked.
It's fine.
My father asked me to bring you to him.
Be ready in just a moment.
Okay, preparing for battle, Eragon has his pre-battle speech with Saphira, and then... oh, okay, it's been what, 3 days since Braum said she was too young to sustain a flame? I guess the maturation process for a dragon is only 1 week long. Climactic battle scene time. This is about where the PG rating becomes distracting in the action scenes. A lot of the action should be PG-13 based on the nature of it, but it keeps cutting away so we miss out on a lot of it. On a technical level, it's definitely the most exciting part of the movie, but it just pales in comparison to the climactic battle of any of the Rings movies or something like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's a shame. This movie was shot on $100 million in its budget, which is the same cost as a Lord of the Rings movie. But the difference is that Peter Jackson not only had massive attention to detail, but he actually felt like someone who cared about the source material. This first-time director, Stefan Fangmeier, doesn't care at all about this source material, and I don't see any emotional attachment to this work he's done. I'm so sick of this. So Eragon has a flying battle with Durza. He kills him, Eragon and Saphira crash land. Eragon has an awkward conversation with Elf Princess, then he flies off into the distance. King Malkovich reveals his dragon in the final shot of the movie. Alright, it's over. Everything about this movie is wrong. The story, as is clear, sucks and is bereft of any creativity. The movie's pacing is too quick for something that wants to be a high fantasy epic. No time is spent developing the characters except Braum, who dies before the third act. I feel like they were adapting the SparkNotes version of this book, which they kinda were because this is a children's film. Durza and Galbatorix are both idiots who keep hiring other people to do their jobs, which leads to a chain of redundant failure reporting scenes.
You bring me nothing.
The task was simple. Bring the boy to me.
There were complications.
Yes, so I've heard. Complications do tend to happen.
The film fails because no one in the movie cares about what they're making. It's just a ploy to make money at its most transparent. The Star Wars and Lord of the Rings movies had people who absolutely loved the stories they were telling and had actors who knew how to approach these roles. Eragon's a movie that could have been better, but a lot of scenes were also cut from the original book to meet a 99-minute runtime, and a lot of scenes were changed for no reason other than to make this more like a kid's film. A more faithful adaptation of the book probably would have had more of that epic feel at the very least, even though the story's unsalvageable. Despite this, you could have made an entertaining ripoff of Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, just like the film version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe did. The movie took the book and made it worse because they toned it down for kids. Its directorial style is fairly derivative, just like its source material. Derivative plus derivative equals very lazy and crappy product. Well, actually, my calculus teacher tells me that's not important. This sucks! You know how this movie should have ended? When Eragon lands Saphira to, I don't know, use the toilet, and while he's alone, Emperor Palpatine ambushes him with one of the Nazgul and force lightnings Eragon to death, and immediately afterwards, the Nazgul dices him to pieces, then brings his fell beast to feast on fresh-baked Eragon steaks. That would beat some justice. Well, that's it. I'm the Watcher of the 2000s, and I just got a spark to write some stories. I'll see you all next time.